The two stories I read yesterday, and they've been poorly translated in my opinion, in both cases, both stories. But I had them, so I decided to read them out. And I laughed at the words describing like astral projection, like going through a wall, molecular and ectoplasm, and all those words that were fashionable in the 1920s to the 40s and so on. But it had a point. I wanted to show how two different myths can remind of each other from different parts of the world, like Estonia and Damascus. And Damascus is a very interesting place, and I will come to it at the end of this video. And then I had just a question about short explanation of the verse epistemology. That is, I see it like knowledge. And cosmology is that you question the world. Some say it's that you reject the world or hate the world, and there are so many different views on that. And then salvation. And I often see salvation word used as secret knowledge by the elite. That means that you have to do a certain thing, belong to a certain religion, faith or whatever, or an occult group, or follow a guru and something like that to get that salvation thing. And I believe in the power of a prayer. So you do whatever you do, but just a little bit of those things that I believe in, or my take on those. And yesterday I went into the power of the lore, myths, legend and lore, and Midrash, the Jewish oral tradition that was mixed with both tales, and I found it quite funny, since there are so many books claiming to have the old way, and as I read those two tales yesterday, described in detail, even if it was badly written, exactly how you should go about and do things. So the descriptions are hidden in the tales and stories. And then there was this as well, that some myths create fierce hate and war. And these were like the golem in Prague, and the book written about Zog that caused Stalin to kill a lot of people, and then Hitler read Zog, and later on the Taliban used Zog as a manifesto in 9/11, and so it was like the question of Zog, and how can a story create so much hate, fear, that it creates war. And I found it quite amusing, since some terrorists use Zog, and so does neo-pagans use Zog as a manifesto, as why they can do certain things like creating chaos. And I wonder, do they know that they both use Zog as a manifesto, a fictional novel? And I'm sure that he who wrote, I've forgotten his name right now, but it's on Wikipedia, the whole Zog, and it's used as a manifesto by Stalin, Hitler, neo-Nazis and Taliban and other terrorist groups as a real truth. So everything had a little bit of overlap here. And then like these myths, I also asked a question in my mind that I'm asking now. Had H.P. Lovecraft heard them? Like the Mad Arab, the fictional character in his book Al-Hazred Abdul. Some say he's real, but the name don't really add up to the or Arabic friends don't really see that the name is correct there. But it might be translations of the name. And then we have William Blake, Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, and so on. And they all also had stories behind them when they started to create art and write. And I loved Arthur Conan Doyle in the 70s as a child. I loved Sherlock Holmes, and I loved The Lost World that later became part of the Jurassic World. And that was I think it was written 1910. But that, and Necromonicon, I think it started in the 1890s, and then he wrote so much. And Tolkien he was a theologian, and so was Lewis, so they both had that level of understanding before they started writing. And then there was this thing that I call elitism in occultism that always was there. I went to a private school and for some years, and I belonged back then, but I didn't really follow their practice. But they approved of my practice. So, but there is that thing that people always think that it's a solution for everything, and that isn't the case. And then I had this short about Gnosticism. Since I'm partly Gnostic, I can be part Christian, part Gnostic, or within the Gnosticism, Christian, Judaic, a mixture of something like that I am. And Kabbalah, I'm a complete own mixture. And then mysticism, and for me it's just that you're seeking a divine connection and truth and faith. And that's what so it's a mixture of a little bit of everything, I think. And since my aunt was in a group and lodges and so on, Golden Dawn and so on, and Telema and all those things. Since I saw it from early childhood, I saw it only as people, some were in for an experience, others were in for networking, and it wasn't even about magic. And some went into the more prominent Golden Dawn or Saint Madre de Ortinez and so on, for status and enlightenment, so that they get to meet the people in power. So I'm a little bit cynical by my nature. And then we had the New Age era that I remember watching from the 70s, even if it wasn't like in the Americas, but it was present in some ways. Even though I heard of Wicca first time in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, I hadn't even heard about Wicca before then. But all kinds of practices, and it left a little bit. I've seen a quite huge shift since everybody is talking about what crystal to use for manifesting. And it somehow lost the point, since that is like the crystals that are used as correspondences in magic, and then they are adopted that you must own crystals for enlightenment. That's the shift. I don't really understand where that came from. You can use anything, you don't need to own anything. And color works as well. And nail polish. You can take a rock and put on pink or purple nail polish and call it amethyst. It works just as well. But there is something with holding the beauty. I love crystals only for the cause that I think they are beautiful and they were created, so they are not man-made. I make a difference between that. And it's mostly for the beauty and what I see as, but I can look at a tree, I can look at tree bark, I can look at anything and see the beauty within that, so it doesn't have to be anything special. I like to look in puddles, I like to, sometimes where there is oil leakage in a puddle and the sun glares in or the moonlight and it gets all these colors that you see in oil spill. So it can create like a magical entrance point on the ground. I hope you don't hear these motorcycles roaming outside. That's why I'm speaking about oil right now. And then what I think that created my life is that I studied history, a little bit of archaeology, since I wanted to know how people lived and what they ate, and philosophy and religion. So it's a combination of all those things for me, since I'm just seeking for the truth, what is truth for me, and I don't expect anybody else to believe what I believe. It is just that this is the way I learn to do things. When I study Aquinas, I try to live and eat like Aquinas, and think like Aquinas, and then I do Magick as with that Aquinas view of life, or Plato, or Maimonides, and so on. So it is just like, it's not role play. I don't assume a God form. I just think of a certain philosopher, let's say for a week, and then I do a ritual. So I'm in the mindset of how he thought during that time of history. And if he would have done magic, how would he have done it? So that's been part of my experimentations in the past. And then we come to Damascus, Egypt, and all those things. And they relate also to the tales I read yesterday. I think that they might have heard about these discoveries already in those tales. And it was the findings of Nag Hammadi, Qumran, and the Dead Sea Scrolls. And if you read those and different Bibles, let's say the Greek Bible, the Vulgate, the Latin Bible, Catholic Bible, the Orthodox Bible, and the Jewish Bible. And then you study Midrash and Talmud. And I'm just talking about my own life, since I don't know every religion well. So that gives you an understanding of what is written. And sometimes you can feel this is why they stopped it from being published like a gospel and so on. Since you start to think for yourself when you study these extra texts, like in the Nag Hammadi and the Gospel of Thomas and so on. But I believe that you have the wisdom within, and when you say your prayer and want to connect and work with the angels and so on, you have started a journey, and the angels will guide you through this. So don't be afraid that there is something bad is going to happen just because you search for the truth. The angels and God know that there is a lot of false lies out everywhere. So don't be afraid to search for your truth, but maybe you should keep it a little bit silent for yourself, unless you're in a very tolerant community where you can discuss things like that. But usually, like in the church, in many churches, if you say that you read the Qumran or that you're excluded from the church, and they start. And in other, you can be thrown out from a mosque or whatever, and as well as other groups. So people are very fearful of what they don't know, since they follow them. And there's nothing wrong with following your faith and religion, if you really do that. But if you just go to, let's say, for worship once a week or not even that, and you don't follow the rules that are within, like being kind to others or helping others, or everything is about you, like money gospel. And you don't pray for your neighbors, you don't help your neighbors since they are unworthy of you, since you are special. That's when it gets dark. And this was all for now, and I love to hear about your thoughts and ideas and questions. Have a magical, magical day. Bye for now.